We take the payout from the private money, and I don't pay myself during the process, but I'll keep some back from after the process, and then dump everything else in to the next flip.
Clancy, welcome. I appreciate you jumping on and being our first remote guest and helping us out. Hopefully we don't have too many bugs and we can work them all out and start doing some remote people and learning from other people around the world. So welcome. Why don't you kind of start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about your mustache and how'd you get it so perfect?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to try to do this remotely and see how it all goes. Just about myself, just a average guy, hardworking guy, grew up in Idaho and went to college, got a degree in automotive technology and did that for 16 years and then didn't really enjoy it too much. I'd rather do something a little different. So I got into fiber optics and really liked doing that. But I didn't really like corporate America too much. So I've tried to start other businesses on the side, like my own shop and stuff like that. And then in 21, I decided that I'm just going to quit my job and go full real estate and see what happens. So I figured if I lose it all, then I lose it. Can I go get another job if I have to? So quit my job. And then January 22, I started full real estate and haven't looked back. So I've been doing pretty darn good, I'd say.
Yeah. So when you started in real estate, you said, hey, I don't know anything. And you went out pretty early on and got coaching and stuff, correct? Am I pretty accurate there?
Yeah, pretty close. So when I quit my job, I was going to flip cars. And then I kept seeing stuff about real estate. And I'm like, well, I'd rather do real estate. I like real estate more. And got coaching from Ryan Pineda, used to be Future Flipper, joined their rookie program for a year, did that, and then took like 4 months off and then ended up joining their all-star program, which was a lot more in-depth. The rookie program was how to find deals, structure deals, do flipping, raise money, stuff like that, your basic stuff. But then the all-star was more on how to run a business and do it the right way. And so I'm like, I got to do that. If I'm going to keep doing this, then I need to actually make it a business, and jumped into that. And I've been a member with that for almost 2 years now. So
you're the rookie program. How many flips? What'd you do during that time? Did you do any flips, or was it mostly learning? Or
no, I did all flips. So I didn't have another W-2. So I just jumped straight in, started learning as much as I could. They were saying that it could take 6 to 9 months to get your first house. Well, I'm like, I don't have 6 to 9 months. I need to go for it. So I ended up getting my first house in 3 months, and I had that flipped in 1 month, and I had it sold before I actually had it all finished. So that one went pretty quick. I ended up learning how to find private money. I was trying to use hard money, and I was in too rural of an area. So I had to figure out real quick how to find private money. And that's all I use now is private money. And then my second deal, I had to wait. So my first one I finished and sold by June. I had to wait till August to actually take ownership of the next one that I bought. And that one I bought from the private money lender. So it was more of a creative financing, seller financing, and did that one. That one was a major rehab there. So we started that one in September, and we didn't put it on the market until March of the next year. So it was a major process. The downside is I was doing all the work myself instead of hiring stuff out. I had the windows hired out because I didn't want to take that on, but everything else I was doing myself. So that's one of the reasons why it took so long. And then going from there is just picking up other houses along the way. So right now I've got basically 3 going right now. So I've got 6, 7, and 8 going right now. One of them we're supposed to close next week on that one, selling that one. So that'll drop us back down to 7 and 8. And then the 7th one should be able to have that one on the market by February. So get that one done. And then the 9th one we're working on right now, we're trying to turn that one into a living space on the lower level. And then the upper level is going to be like a midterm rental for traveling nurses or traveling professionals like that. So we're going to keep that one. That one is actually our primary residence. So we're just going to move downstairs and then,
nice.
and then rent the top out. So that way we've got some cash flow going. We're not too worried about the mortgage and help us on cash. So
As you kick some of the kids out of the house and, you get a little more room and move down to the basement.
yeah, that's what we figured. Like our house is 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and there was 5 of us living here. Now there's only 3 of us living here, and there's room downstairs that we can actually add a bedroom down there. So it'll be a 3-bedroom, 1-bath downstairs, 2-bedroom, 2-bath upstairs. So it's like, but there's 3 of us here. We don't even use half of the house. So we figured we might as well utilize what we have and help somebody else.
So are you converting that into a legal duplex, or is it just because you're doing the shorter term rental strategy that you're going to have kind of co-living?
Yeah, we're not actually turning it into a technical duplex. By the city code, we can't from where we're at, but we have an outside entry going into the basement. So all we have to do is close the upstairs stairway off, and then we can rent it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a great workaround, because if you're converting it to a legal duplex, there's a lot of costs involved in that, and dealing with local government's kind of a pain. But
Yeah.
when you're just kind of renting out rooms in your house, is what the technical term for it is, it offers that income stream without having to take on that huge financial burden.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of weird because if you go 1 block over, there's duplexes on that street. But just where we're at, it's like right on the line. So we figured we might as well rent what we can and stay in it where we can. So
I didn't think there was any laws where you live.
oh yeah. Yeah, the town that we live in, well, the county that we live in, you can't even have an ADU in your backyard. So it's pretty strict.
So kind of talk about where you live, because you're like I said, first out of town guest. So
yeah, so I'm in Twin Falls, Idaho. So we're about an hour and a half east of Boise. So we're in a smaller area, but it's grown quite a bit. The main thing that draws people to Twin Falls is they've got the Snake River. So there's the Shoshone Falls, which is basically the Niagara of the West. It's not as wide as the Niagara Falls, but it's taller than the Niagara Falls. So it brings a lot of tourists to that. And then the canyon where we're at, they do base jumping off of the bridge. So that brings in quite a bit of people to do that. But it's pretty small, rural dairies, farms, stuff like that around us. So there's a lot of agriculture that goes on here. A lot of potatoes and sugar beets, stuff like that.
So when you complete a flip, I'm curious, are you reinvesting everything back into the next deal, or are you taking your payout and keep rolling that private money?
We take the payout from the private money, and I don't pay myself during the process, but I'll keep some back from after the process and then dump everything else in to the next flip. We've gotten to where the first private money lender is that I had to put so much down. That way I had skin in the game. And then I paid all the rehab. The next private money lender, and we kind of did the same thing. And then after a few deals, they actually do full purchase price plus rehab. So, which helps us quite a bit because we're not having to try to come out of pocket with all that other stuff. And then just the monthly payment to them. So we roll quite a bit back into the business, but we still keep what we need to live off of.
No, that's great. And I think implementing that, co-living area is going to offset some of your home expenses, which then allows you, it limits your risk when you're doing these flips too.
Right. Yeah. And like my wife, she's a mobile notary. So she does that quite a bit. And then she got a real estate license to help buy and sell for me. So she's doing that. And then she works at the airport 1 day a week. So she's like running around like crazy. So she's like, we need to figure something out to where I can just get in. She can just get into real estate and do that more full time, but still not have to worry about the monthly expenses that we have. So that's why we're like, let's just rent the house out that we can and utilize that.
So I want to talk about your wife a little bit, because I met you about a year and a half ago in Vegas at one of Ryan Pineda's events, and you were there with your wife. And that was when you joined the All-Star program. And you were apprehensive about joining the All-Star program, and it was a big price tag. And your wife was like your biggest champion, if you will. Like, she was like, no, you got to do it type thing. So kind of talk about those relationship, if you will, like her pushing you and helping you get into some of this stuff, if you will.
Yeah, it's kind of challenging. She's actually not a risk taker. I am very much a risk taker, like quitting my job and just go full real estate. She's like, what are you doing? You're going to bankrupt us. We're going to lose everything. And then actually, as she's seen the process go along, she's realized, okay, you kind of know what you're doing right now after that first house. And she's like, well, maybe we'll see what happens the second house. So she's grown to figure out what we're doing. And now it's like, okay, she's wanting to take more of those steps of, okay, let's get more going to actually make this a business. And like buying the All-Star, it was like we were in that transition period of, okay, that's a big chunk of money, and we've already got a house that we're trying to fix at the time. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I can afford doing this or not. And she was very with me on that, or she was very encouraging to buy that and take that step. And I think it helped quite a bit. It helped us with relationships with people that are in the program, how to actually structure better deals and run a business. So it's having somebody there to actually push you when you need to take that little step helps quite a bit.
No, that's great. I mean, we work, my wife and I are real estate brokers, and we work with a lot of couples, and it's so cool to see that dynamic come together. We've had it's not always the wife. A lot of times for us, it's been the husband, where the wife has gotten involved in real estate, really likes this idea, and is having trouble getting the husband on board. We worked with a couple where the wife bought the first property. She's a designer, designed the whole thing, Airbnb. They were able to refinance all their money back out, and the husband saw it work. And that's all it took, was that light bulb moment of, oh, this might actually work. Yeah. And just seeing them do it together, I think it's such a beautiful thing. So it's cool to hear that. So I understand you homeschool as well. How does that dynamic work with your wife always on the go and you managing these projects?
It works pretty good. Our daughter does like online homeschooling. So she usually gets up whenever she wants, basically, and then gets her schoolwork done. And then she's running around with me, getting materials or going to look at houses and stuff like that. And then she goes to a lot of the meetups and stuff that we go to. So I'd rather have her learn more of business stuff than actual stuff that she's never going to use. So having her involved in all these masterminds and everything like that, I think that's more of an education than what she's getting from schooling.
And how long have you been doing the homeschooling?
So that's been, she started when she was in 6th or 7th grade, and she's in 9th grade right now. So a couple years. We've tried to do like charter school and stuff in between that, but homeschool works the best, especially with us running around everywhere. We can have a hand on it better. We're not having to take her somewhere and then go pick her up and leave what we're doing. So,
right. Well, and so what's online system do you use that you found that worked? We just started homeschooling our 14-year-old this school year, and so we've gone through 2 or 3 different programs just trying to find what works. And obviously, a lot of it's time management and how much discipline she has to get the stuff done. But with us both working full time, it's finding something that is interesting enough to where she's actually going to spend the time on it has been difficult.
Right. Yeah, we did one that was basically through the state of Idaho. It was called I Succeed. That one was very demanding. Like, you had to do so much during the day, and it was very involved. and we had to be involved with it. And it took almost all day to do a day. And now we've put her into a new one. It's called Power School. They're on Instagram and stuff. And that one, it's work at your own pace, but it only takes 3 hours a day. So it's not time consuming. You learn what you need to learn and you're done for the day. If you want, you can keep going, but it's do it at your pace. So, which we like quite a bit too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd say the biggest thing, I mean, there was some social reasons why my daughter wanted to, get out of school and do homeschooling. She's the most entrepreneurial of all of our kids. So for her being more involved in the businesses, it makes sense. But I just love to see this dynamic shift, because I feel like when we were growing up, the homeschool kid was the weird kid.
Right.
And now it's kind of becoming the kid that's going to excel in life is, getting these outside experience. I know Grant Cardone's a huge advocate for it. There's an Army Special Forces guy that he did UFC fighting.
Tim Kennedy.
Tim Kennedy. Yeah. Tim Kennedy's a huge advocate for it, because his argument is it doesn't take 8 hours to learn the material. If I can sit down at 9 o'clock, eat breakfast, take 2 hours, learn the material, pass all the tests, then I get the rest of the day to go learn how to be a human.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's where I grew up, in a private school, but my mom was the teacher. So it was basically homeschooled. And my wife was homeschooled her whole schooling years. So we were the weird ones. Now it's like, okay, the weird ones are the ones going to school. We'd rather have you at home and learning what we want you to learn, and not all the garbage that's out there nowadays. So,
yeah. And so we just got back a few weeks ago, a month ago or something like that, from Mexico. We were down there. You were there at the same time for an event, and you were able to have your daughter down there with you. She's at all the networking events that we're there for, and socializing with, was she 15 or something like that?
Yeah, she is 15 now.
Yeah. So socializing with all the adults and, bringing all that in. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing, like they're learning business, they're learning socialization,
the socialization part. That's what Grant Cardone always touches on, is he's like, people always ask me, like, don't you want her to be socialized? It's like, my daughter just spoke in front of a crowd of 5,000 people. Like, I'd say she's pretty socialized.
Yeah. Yeah. And being around people at this caliber, you've got to learn how to socialize and not be the shy one. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And it's the same in the world. You might as well get out there and make yourself known and talk to people.
Does Idaho have programs set up for extracurricular kind of activities?
Yeah. So if you're homeschooled in Idaho, you can actually participate in sports or other activities at the schools. So like my son wrestled with the high school when he was homeschooled, and then he ended up going to high school. And then my daughter now, she's gymnastics, but that's not school related. So she does that. But yeah, Idaho is very friendly on that. And they also do, if you have a subject that you want to go in and learn, you can actually go to the school and do that subject.
Oh, wow.
And leave too. So it's not like you have to go to the school there. You can pick and choose what subjects you want to learn from at the school. So
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I know one of Trump's incoming policies is he wants to provide more support to parents who are homeschooling. And I think that's great. I mean, anyone who can and has the resources to homeschool, absolutely take advantage, because I know I personally would love to have more direct influence over what my kids are consuming all day.
Right. Yeah.
So you mentioned your son. How's he doing? I know he just joined the military and
he's doing great. We found out about a week and a half ago that he's getting married in a week and a half.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So we've got a wedding that we're going to go to, and then he's going to go to basic February 19th. So
he's getting married before that.
Yeah, before that, go to basic, and then he's joining the Navy, and he's trying to be in the nuclear program. So he'll go to South Carolina for his schooling for 6 months, and then we're not sure where he's going to go after that, but that's what he's always wanted to do. He was in high school trying to get into the Naval Academy, and then with COVID and everything, he decided that he was just going to not pursue that at the time. And then just recently, he's like, nope, I'm going to go for it. That's what I want to do. So more power to him. If that's where your heart's at and your desire is, go for it.
And that's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that your first flips, you did everything.
Yeah.
Where are you at now? I know you're still doing quite a bit, but where you at, and what are your goals for 25 as far as that goes?
Goals of 25 is I want to get me out of the construction stuff, because the more construction I do, the less looking at deals that I do. So right now I'm probably 85% out of the construction. I basically get the house to where it's all the finishing stuff, and then I take over. I found out when you have two houses going at the same time that are needing the same work, it's really hard to be in two different places. So stuff gets pushed back. Like one we should have had on the market 6 months ago. That one we were trying to keep, so we had other things that we ran into with that. The other one we should probably had on the market at least a couple months ago. So it's trying to get that lined out. And I would like to try to do 6 flips this year and get me out of all the construction. So it's just finding if I want to do have a GC do it, or if I want to be the GC and just find subs and do it. So it's me pulling myself out, and everybody's telling me to do it. So it's just a matter of me doing it, taking the steps and doing it.
Yeah. So how many deals would you say you have to sift through before finding one that is worth pulling the trigger on?
It's kind of, I'd say it's not too hard. We get all of ours from MLS, and we've gotten a few from wholesalers. So we've never done direct seller. One property that we had, I made a abandoned sign and just put it in front of the properties that I do. That property we got from a seller just stopping by and asking if we really bought houses. So that's the only real direct to seller we've done. Everything else is MLS. So it's in the first and 22, everything was taking off, skyrocketing. So it was a little harder to get something that wasn't trashed for way overpriced. I'd say I put in probably close to 50 offers and finally got one. And then after that, it's been pretty easy, I'd say. Having my wife as the agent, we can see 0 days on market, and we'll just put an offer in it instead of going and looking at it and then putting the offer in. So we've done that on a couple, gotten those. Right now in the wintertime, it's more of 22 style stuff that's way too trashed and way overpriced. So it's a little bit harder to find the deals right now. But it's usually we put an offer in and we get the deal. I'd say 1 out of 5, maybe, we're getting the offers. So we've had some that we've had to back out on just due to unseen stuff that we couldn't see until the inspections were done and stuff like that. So we've had the opportunity to do more deals, but we've backed out on them also.
And so do you have a specific criteria of how much money you need to make, or is it, X dollar amount per timeline of renovation? How do you filter what's worth your time?
So what I do, we've got a calculator that comes with the All-Star program. So you can put in there what the ARV is after repair value, what you want to make, and then it breaks down all your rehab costs and everything to tell you what your purchase price should be. So what they recommend is if you're doing a big volume, you want to make like 20,000 on each of them. And I don't want to do that. I'm not that big of a risk taker. So I usually try to do a 50,000 profit. That way I know if the market shifts, I can hurry and dump it and still make something more for my investors. I don't want them to come after me when I can't pay them. And if I'm going to lose, I'd lose and not the investors lose. So I usually try to do a minimum of 50,000. Usually, like the first one we did 40,000. The next one we did 75,000 profit. And then the next one after that, we did, I believe that one was a 65,000 profit. So it's it's finding that 50,000 mark and then hoping we make more on it. The one that we had, the direct to seller, that one is like our gold mine right there. We're going to profit about 140,000 on that one. So, but we've had that one almost a year now, which we should have sold earlier, but we were trying to keep it as a rental because it's on an acre and we can build an ADU and do all that. And we figured, nope, let's just get rid of it now while we can. And we figured we're not going to lose either way. So we're going to make pretty good money on that one.
No, that's great. And so with your private partners, are you structuring debt partnerships where they get a set dollar or a set percentage return based on the money they're investing, or are you sharing upside with them?
No, so we do a 10% with them. They get a 10% return. And then we do a minimum of 6 months. So that way they're guaranteed 6 months of pay, because the houses that we're buying aren't costing very much. So it's like they want to make sure that they're going to get something out of the deal. So we do a 6-month minimum at 10% interest, and then no profit split or anything like that.
So is that 10% annualized or
Yeah.
at the end? Okay.
10% annualized. So I did one deal with one of the other All-Star members. That one we did a profit split. Like they purchased the house, I did all the rehab, put it on the market, and then we did a profit split off of that one. So.
And so what's your level of comfortability with each scenario? What did you like and not like about both?
I'd say that both doing the percentage payment, they pay the whole house, and then I'm just paying them monthly payments. I like that better because then they're guaranteed to get paid. They know exactly what they're going to get paid. Doing a partner split, it was, okay, we're going to do this 50-50 deal here. Well, if it goes south and we've got to pay on it, we got to split 50-50 to pay them. So that's where it came into, we had to hurry and get it sold, and ended up taking a smaller profit. And the other person didn't like that the profit was smaller. They wanted more. But I'm like, it's a win-win. We sold property, we made money. So I wouldn't say greedy. I don't want to get money involved in it. I'd rather get rid of the deal, make what I make, and move on to the next one. So that's where it was a little bit harder, because you're dealing with somebody else that is trying to make money on it also.
So what, kind of switch angles here a little bit, but so you got into real estate. What was was it financial freedom? I know you mentioned time freedom. You don't want to be working for somebody else. What was kind of your reasoning there? Why real estate?
Real estate, I've always loved real estate. We've bought houses and stuff and sold and fixed stuff up and stuff like that. So I've always been interested in it. I always knew you could make money in it. I didn't know how to do it. Like back in 2009, we lived in Utah, and there was a house down the street that was going to auction. And I'm like, man, that'd be nice to have that as a rental. But I don't have no clue how to get the money to do it. So I didn't pursue it. And the free time, we love having free times, especially with my wife working at the airport. We can take off and fly anywhere whenever we want. So we do that. Financially, we'd like to get into where we have rentals. My main goal is I would like to be a private money lender. I believe that that's true passive income. You're just lending your money out and making money on it. So I would shoot for that as my goal, is where I want to be on the end. But I know that we want to get rentals and stuff like that, midterm rentals, long-term rentals, stuff like that, to eventually not have to worry so much about cash flow when we're doing the flips, because it's basically you're dumping all your money in, you're waiting, and then you get a chunk back. So just to ease that time period in between is where we would like to be.
So you mentioned you can basically fly for free. I think you got to pay the airport tax or whatever, part of your wife's deal with the airport or the airline that she works. But so you guys, like when I hit you up about doing this, you're like, I can fly to Omaha, like I know y'all just got back from Seattle or something like that recently. you just kind of take trips for the moment. So kind of talk about that from I mean, that's pretty freeing in my opinion, being able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's pretty freeing. Like if we take any domestic flight, we don't have to pay anything at all. No taxes or anything like that. Like going to Cancun, we had to pay taxes to go back and forth there. And then my wife went to Europe last summer, so she had to pay the taxes on that. But if flying domestically, we don't have any taxes. It's pretty nice. That trip to Seattle, my other daughter was home for Christmas for college, and we're like, hey, let's go to Seattle for the day. So we got up, flew to Seattle, had lunch, ran around, came back, no big deal. But we've done that on other things too. We're like, hey, let's go to Hawaii in next week or 2 weeks and go do that. So we've done that. I ended up driving my daughter back to school. She's going to school over in Wyoming. So it drove her back, and then I ended up flying back. So it helps on that where we don't have to take 2 cars or pay for a trip to come back. So it's very free and fun, but my wife
and
has
it's actually free.
What's that?
And it's actually free.
Yeah, it's free. So yeah, it's fun. Like last winter, we went down to the Gulf Shore for Christmas break. We're like, let's just do something new for Christmas. So we flew down there for a few days and came back. And that's where it's fun, is you can go experience something different and you're not taking much time out of your normal life to do it. So we've always thought about doing more of a homeschool history stuff like that, flying back to the East Coast and going to the White House and all that to learn the actual history and where the history took place.
Nice. Well, and I wonder if making trips like that, if there's some kind of tax workaround if you're going for, school purposes.
Right. Yeah. And like flying around, like I basically turn everything into a business trip. There's real estate everywhere. So it's like, okay, we're going to make a little business trip and go to Seattle for the day and do that.
Nice. Yeah. And so what other things are you doing to limit your tax liability?
Not too much right now. We try to write off everything we can. We haven't been to where we needed to buy stuff. Having the rehab on houses helps quite a bit because we can write all that expense off. We had, and buying in 1 year and then selling in the next year. So having that carry over to write off for the next year, that's where it really helped us. We haven't ran into where like, oh, we need to go buy a truck or we need to go do something crazy yet. So, which is very nice and comforting. But I know that eventually there's going to be a time where we're like, okay, we need to buy something. And I would like to get to where I can buy my rentals. Like, okay, I need to dump some cash right now and just buy a rental is where I would like to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a real estate professional, you'll be able to depreciate that against your active income. And one of the tricks that I've seen people using is the short-term rental loophole, where even if you're not a real estate professional, if you have average stay of less than 7 days, then you can depreciate that property against active income. So I think it's a really smart strategy. And as you scale up and do more of these $140,000 profit margins, that's going to be much more of a necessity. But it's a very good problem to have.
Yeah, it's going to be a little different next year when we file. So we might have to be dumping stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on the ROI, I mean, I think a lot of people look at a real estate investment and they say, I put this amount of cash and I, got back 10% return, so be it. But can you talk about the ROI of investing in these coaching programs?
The main thing is the camaraderie and the people that you can bounce stuff off of, and it's the community, having like-minded people. They do coaching calls throughout the week. So it's like if you want to learn different strategies or different things that are going on, like Airbnb or marketing or anything like that, you can jump on that to help learn from the people that are actually doing it. And everybody that's coaches for the wealthy investors, what it's called now. So everybody that's a coach is actually doing the same thing in their personal life. So if you have a coach that's trying to teach you how to flip, they're actually flipping on the side also. So you're not just getting some guy that's telling you, oh yeah, you need to do this, but has no experience in actually doing it. So having that accountability and that resource is like super valuable to me. I like to have people that I can bounce stuff off of, or if I'm struggling with something like, hey, how did you guys deal with this situation? Or just, hey, can we do a deal together? And you've got people there. So they've got different platforms or whatever that are on school that you can help find people to fund your deals, or people that you partner with on deals, or people that'll buy deals from you if you're wholesaling or whatever like that. So it's not just in this area, it's nationwide. So you've got people that are all over doing the same thing. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that was a huge breakthrough that we felt is, starting off by buying books and finding a way to turn the knowledge from these $200 worth of books into $5,000 commission, and then turning, a $10,000 coaching program into $100,000. And it's just, I've seen the ROI on expanding our knowledge so much higher and faster than any real estate investment that I've done. And so I like to be an advocate for people going out and find the right programs. Obviously there's a lot of garbage out there, but it's like when you sift through enough of it, you can tell who's really doing it and who's, all fluff. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I was at when I was getting all the ads for the future flipper. It's like, well, who is this guy? Like, is this just a scam? Is he going to take my money and run? And just doing the research and seeing it and actually going to the events, I was like, okay, this is legit. I feel comfortable putting the money into this and learning how to do this. So it's helped quite a bit. And like with Ryan, like we've hung out other things too. We've gone to men's retreats and stuff like that. So it's like you're hanging out with the person that's on the camera trying to sell all the time. And the person that's off camera, you're not, somebody's totally different. It's the same guy no matter what, which I like also. I like somebody that's going to be honest in person and honest behind your back too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I consume a lot of Ryan Pineda's content. I haven't dived into any of his programs yet, but I love the stuff that he puts out there and love what he's doing with, his Christian ministry and stuff now. I think it's the direction that his business is taking. I have no doubt that he'll be a billionaire in the next 10, 15 years.
Speaking of the Christian ministry, that's actually how Clancy and I met, was through that. So we were both in Wealthy Kingdom, and I was going on to Vegas, or we were both going on to Vegas, and for one of Ryan's events, and I just put in the chat, hey, who's going down there? And we exchanged phone numbers and hung out, and then, like I said, went to Mexico together, and which was another one of Ryan's events down in Mexico. Yes, an annual trip in Mexico, networking event, mastermind, if you will. So yeah, it's one thing you said that I noticed in Mexico. So it was a wealthy investor event in Mexico, but not being a quote unquote in wealthy investor, kind of being an outsider, just part of the Wealthy Kingdom side of things. I did notice the camaraderie of everybody that was there. I think there was about 70 of us or so at the event. And a lot of the people knew other people from other events, known from the coaching calls. And it was like friends coming back together again that hadn't seen. So I did from an outsider's perspective, I appreciated seeing that as far as the networking and the camaraderie between everybody seemed willing to help. I know Dan had got a big deal done while we were down there, close on something, and they celebrated it all together, and so that was nice to see.
Yeah, and I think down there in Mexico, we went last year also, and I think that's where we connected with people more, because you're not just running from event to event. You're actually with somebody for a period of time. So you actually get to know about their families, their lives, what they're doing. And we've got many private money lenders from down there in those events. So it's very different now. Like they just had the last mastermind, I think last week, and I wasn't able to get down there. And people are like, hey, we missed you down here. Is everything going good? Like you have that family now. So.
Yeah, I got a Zoom call with somebody met down there, and just stay connected. Like I said, it was different than other networking events I've gone to, and that some meetings are just like, here's a whole bunch of material, you don't really even talk to anybody, and and this was small, close knit, more intimate, if you will. So I did like that. So.
So what kind of books or other systems other than Ryan Pineda's, ecosystem are you trying to implement into your business?
So the number one book's the Bible. I always try to go off of what that says and try to live that way. I like to do a lot of like self-help books. One book that I just got done with was Don't Let the Enemy Sit at Your Table, which is a good one. It's basically,
Is that a Christian?
What's that?
Is that Christian-based book or?
Yeah, it's a Christian-based book. It's Louis Giglio wrote it. And it's basically your mindset on don't let the devil have a seat at your table, and like how to see that before he gets a seat, and just keeping your mind clear and moving forward through life. There's always temptation. It's just recognizing the temptation before it's too late, before it gets too entertaining. Really, really like that one. I've done it's easier to 10x than 2x. I really like that book. Most of the stuff that I get off of is like podcasts and stuff like that. I really enjoy listening to Ed Milet, Dan Martell, stuff like that. I get more of an interaction with that than I do off of just a book. It's easier for me to learn that way. So most of the books that I do are Audible because I'm running everywhere, and by the time I get home, I'm trashed. So I do more Audible stuff like that. Other books that I've gone through, like the 7 Habits. I don't remember what the name of it is. I haven't read that one for a while. I did more of that when I was first starting out, was trying to figure everything out. I really liked Who Not How. That one was really good. Learning stuff from that. But it's more of...
It's not like you implemented any of it yet.
What's that? I know exactly. Yeah. Or even The Richest Man in Babylon. Yeah, it talks about making right decisions. Like, yeah, it's really good knowledge, but actually putting it into practice for me is where I have the hard time.
Have you read or listened to Dan Martell's book yet?
I have not. The Buy Back Your Time.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
No, I'm scared to actually.
There's a lot of
I know what the title is, Buy Back Your Time, and that's where I need to do is buy back my time.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. No, it's a great one. I love all those books, and I think implementation is something I definitely struggle with. And so my philosophy is every January I go re-listen to all the Audible books that I have, and if I have the tangible book, I'll read it too, because I feel like these books speak to you at a different time in your business in different ways. And so I might pick up something this year that I didn't get last year, that I didn't get the year before. And, and so by me going back through, and I think last year I did 120 audiobooks and then maybe 30 tangible books. The year before I did 52 books, and, so just exponentially increasing, and I can go through a book that I've already listened to faster. And it's just, I actually just finished, the 10X is easier than 2X, and I love that book.
Yeah. What I usually do is listen to them on Audible, and then I usually listen at 1.5 speed or 2 speed, because then I have to pay attention to it, and I'll get through with one, and then I'll take a couple of days off, and I'm like, oh, let's go through that again, just to see if I caught something that I didn't catch the first time. So I like to do that as well. I've heard like having the hard book in front of you and then listening to it and following along is supposed to help you retain it more, but I've never tried it.
Yeah, it's a good hack. I like doing that. I mean, I like the tangible books. It's more of an active effort for me to sit down and read a book. And, the only book that I've been able to implement, and that was my goal for last year, is that every single day I read the Bible. And so putting that into practice, and then, I'll read a chapter in the Bible, and then, because for me, it's just one chapter, and Ed Milet's thing of just one more. Right. If I just read one more chapter, and then eventually I'll have a better understanding of it. And then I'll open up a regular book, and normally I'm falling asleep by then. But listen to audiobooks. I mean, I think it's phenomenal, but I agree. I have to switch back between audiobooks and podcasts. Like audiobooks, it becomes too much of, I mean, I relate it to the military, the knife hand in your face, like do this, do this, do this. And this guy's saying, do this,
Right.
Whereas with a podcast, it's a lot more storytelling, and here's what happened when I actually tried this. And I like that. So it's great.
Definitely.
My biggest problem with books is a publisher, like every book you buy is like 280 pages to 320 pages. Like they have their set page count, and they have to put fluff in there to get to that page count. I'm like, just cut all this out. I need the 100-page book. This just tells me what I need to do, and let me go do it. That's my biggest problem with books. So
just get straight to the point and let me do it.
Yeah. So I've been doing Ty Lopez's course. If you're familiar with him, he just did, it's the 67 rules or some 67 habits. And every day he has a different challenge where he goes on an hour-long rant and then talks about it. One of the ones is he reads a book a day, and people take that as like, I can't read a whole book a day. He says he starts with the front cover, reads the first couple pages, goes to the back cover, reads it, and then he'll just skim the pages and see what chapters look interesting, and then he'll focus on that chapter for that reason. He says that when someone brings a book to a publisher, they have an idea, and that idea can probably be accomplished in one chapter, but all that extra stuff is to sell a book.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's quicker ways to learn. So you mentioned the number one book that you go to is the Bible. How do you, with everything else you read, everything else you hear, podcasts and stuff like that, do you look through everything through that lens? Like, do you filter everything through the Bible? I mean, what I mean by that, like a self-help book, like it's telling you to do X, but you're like, like, I don't know if that's the right thing based on this biblical principle or something like that. Like, it could be a real estate thing, and they say, go take out as much debt as possible and buy everything in the world. And the Bible tells you opposite. That kind of give a context or whatever.
Right.
What's your lens to choose?
Yeah. So, So like the money issue, like the Bible says, like greed and all that stuff. Growing up, I was not really taught that money's bad, but that like the rich eye or the camel, it's easier for the camel to get through the eye of the needle than a rich guy to get into heaven. Like that verse. Then it was like, okay, I don't want to be rich because I'm not going to get into heaven. But then you have the prosperity gospel where everybody's like, hey, just name it, claim it, you'll get it. It's all yours. And I'm like, well, this last couple of years where it's like, okay, I need to be a business owner. I need to grow my business. That means I need to make money and I need to spend money. I need to figure out what money, like what it is. And going into the Bible it's just a tool. Some people are blessed with more money. Some people are blessed with less money. It just depends on what God has for you and like the talents. Like if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing with the money that you've been given, then you're going to be blessed with more money. And if you're not, then it's going to be taken from you. And so learning that and keeping a mindset of, I don't want to get greedy. I want to help people. I want to see the kingdom grow more than I want to see my bank account grow. So I've implemented where I tithe off of my business money, not to get a tax write-off, but to further the kingdom. I put it in multiple places, help out multiple people through that. And I feel that it's blessed us quite a bit, just with the deal flow and everything like that. It's like God provides when we need what we need. So doing that, like on money and like on healthy things, like, okay, this is what the Bible says. You can fast and you can, like Daniel doing vegetables and whatnot. Like there's a reason and there's a time for stuff. So it's like, okay, let's implement this. Let's try this out. Let's just do fast, a 3-day fast, and see what my body does and how it reacts to that, and see where it draws closer to God through that. And then like, okay, let's do a cleanse. Basically, let's eat just vegetables and take the toxins out of your body and see how you feel after that, and do that. So it's very, you've got the world saying do this, don't do that. Well, let's see what the Bible says. This one's been around a lot longer, and people have lived a lot longer through this. So let's just see what it does. And like reading through like the people that sin like crazy. Okay, what's their lifestyle like? How did their life turn out? Okay, that shows me that's a bad choice. I don't want to do that. Like right now, going through Proverbs, you have the woman that is lusty, like trying to draw you in. Like, okay, you see, the world's doing the same thing. Sex sells, so everything's sex oriented, like ran that way. Well, if you look at it, you're like, okay, that's just taking somebody down the wrong road, wrong direction, going to ruin their life. But it's already laid out in a book for you that shows you, like, don't go after this woman. Go after the things that matter. Go after wisdom. Go after things that are going to further the kingdom. So that's just some of the ways that I've used it. There's many other ways, but it's just taking stuff and putting it, okay, how can I actually use this in my life? And how is this going to guide me to be a better person and to further the kingdom of God?
No, that's great. And I love everything you're saying. That was my next question, was going to be, along the lines of tithing. I think people tend to treat it like an ATM, like, oh, I'm giving 1,000, so I get 2 back, right, God? And it's not what it is, because I think, and that it's very difficult to give generously, truly generously, and without the expectation of return. But that's what God rewards, because he knows what's in our heart. And so when you're coming across, obviously a fork in the road is the easiest example. How does God tell you whether to go left or right?
For like the tithing, or for
tithing? I mean, the business decisions, obviously walking away from a job is a big one.
Yeah, I'd say for me, like right now we're looking at buying another house that we're like, okay, does this make sense? Looking at it, we know the risk tolerance that we're willing to take. We know what the property needs, but is there something else that's going to come up that is going to bite us? So right now we're looking at this house, and the house on the tax record shows that it's a manufactured mobile house, but it's not. And it was built in 1940. So we're like, okay, where's that going to bite us? Is it going to bite us after we buy it and we try to sell it? Or do we try to figure that out before we even buy it, what it's going to take to do that? So trying to find out the direction of which way we should go. It's kind of a gut feeling, like, okay, I don't feel we should do this. And we've had other offers like that where we're like, okay, we need to buy this house and go for that. And then start the process. And we're like, no, we need to turn and go a different way. Something doesn't feel right about it. We better get out now before it's too late and do that. Same thing in spiritual life is, what's the consequences of my actions if I go down this road or if I don't go down this road? Like tithing and stuff is try to pick stuff that my heart longs for. Like one year we donated to Samaritan Ministry or Samaritan's Purse, and sat the kids down and said, okay, here's how much we're going to give. Pick what areas you want to help out in another country, and we'll donate to that. And we've donated to friends of our kids that are going on missions. Hey, let's help you out, go on this mission. We've donated to churches that are trying to do building projects, a lot of benevolence funds, helping out with youth camps, supporting those and stuff like that. So just trying to figure out where my heart is and what I could say, not the biggest return that I'm going to get, but the biggest impact that I can make. I'd rather help kids out that I know can have an influence in their life. Sorry, I get a little emotional sometimes.
Well,
But I think it's just having that heart of how is this going to impact multiple people? If I get something in return, then that's great, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'd rather just put it out there and just let God do whatever he's going to do with it.
no, I can tell that you put a lot of thought into it, and the release from believing that you have the control to know where your money's best spent and trust that God is going to have a bigger impact than we're capable of. I think it just proves, how great he is. And that's something that I think that when we jumped, away from W-2s and stuff like that, it's difficult because you're counting every penny that's going out the door, but just to stay disciplined and trust that, God needs this 10 cents more than it's going to have an impact on mine. And if you're not going to donate 10 cents or tithe 10 cents out of $1, you're not going to give 10 million when you've got 100.
Right.
So I think it's terrific.
Right. And like when I quit my job and everything, is basically during COVID. And I'm like, well, the Bible says I'm only guaranteed 2 things. I'm guaranteed a house or somewhere to live and food. So if that comes down to me living in a cardboard box by the river, then that's what's going to be. So I know that I'm going to be taken care of in those 2 areas. So
Yeah, it's takes a lot of trust to step out like that, though. Man, I had a question and I'm completely having a brain for it. So,
Well, perfect. I got a bunch.
yeah.
Well, so in the decision-making process, I think one of the things that people have trouble with is getting neutral, is that we always have an inherent bias. And sometimes God is trying to guide us towards things or close doors on intentionally, and we just go right back and open them. And so, I guess, is there any practices that you put in, to get neutral or to separate yourself from the noise? And I mean, Bible says, be still and God speaks to you. That's one thing that I'm actively trying to be more diligent about. And I've noticed the more I get into the word, the more I see God speaking to me. And the example that I've used is some people like to just open the Bible, point to it and say, oh, that's what God was trying to tell me. I mean, what kind of practices do you have to really open yourself up to listen?
the main thing, I'm a very avid hunter. So I love to get in the mountains. Where I go, there's no cell service, no distractions. And I'm usually by myself, which a lot of people don't do well in silence by themselves. I think I kind of thrive on it. It fills me up. And just being out there and letting God speak to me when there's no distractions out there. And that's where I feel the most peace and the most filled up, I guess what you say. But like making decisions when I'm not around that is trying to keep my emotions out of it and to, okay, God, this is the opportunity that's presented right now. I need to know if this is an opportunity to keep going after or if we need to switch directions and just totally close that out and not even worry about it. So it's having that, being able to not get emotional about something or to make it personal. So like when I first started, I was like, dude, I'm just getting rejected like crazy. And I really want this house. Well, I'm getting emotionally attached to this house that I want. That is not a good idea. It's not going to work out. The numbers don't even work. So just push it off and move on. So having that discernment of not getting emotional, but being able to get away, be quiet, and just listen to what God has to say to your life is, for me, it's getting out, just getting away from everything where it's just quiet, being out in nature.
That's great. And I think you know where I'm going to take this, but the idea of not getting emotionally attached to the deals that you're doing, and then at a greater scale, not getting attached to the industry that you're in. I mean, it allows you to pivot and follow God's guidance, because while you you said 15 plus years, you were in one industry. And when God told you it's time to move over here, I have bigger things planned for you. If you were so emotionally attached to that thing that you were doing that you identified with it, then that identity comes before your identity as a child of God. And I think that when you can switch that, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be in a cardboard box. God could say, hey, I'm waiting for this, this opportunity to be available for you. I need you to just trust that this cardboard box is going to get you to the kingdom. And so, identifying as a child of God, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah, if God tells me I need to go be a used car salesman, then okay, that's where I'm going to go.
I think that could be a double-edged sword, though. And this is where I'll go with that. So, say you kind of get emotionally attached to something, and then you have the mentality, God will take care of me.
Well, that's faith without action.
So you go and like, this may be a deal, it may not be a deal, but I know God's going to let my plans work out in the long run, and then you get burned and lose your shirt. So I could see it going both ways.
True. And I think the more the context I'm saying is in the positive light of, maybe if staying stagnant where you're at would have put you further in debt and would have taken you longer or taken you down a rabbit hole, and maybe, who knows where that route would have gone. And that's where the discernment comes of being able to hear God's answer. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think so. I think like that the second house that I bought, I got into, and I'm like, man, I made a huge mistake. I'm way over my head right now. I can't do this. I need to figure out how I'm going to get out of this. And it's like God saying, no, these are the processes that's going to take. Trust the process and just keep moving forward. And basically taking my timeline out of the period and saying, okay, this is going to take longer than what I had planned, but I know that the reward is going to be there in the end if I just keep pursuing what God's put before me. And I feel that with me quitting my job and going into real estate, it wasn't like, yeah, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to wing it. It's saying, okay, God, this is where I feel I'm being led. If that's where I'm being led, then I need to be blessed through this. I need to be able to do this. And I think that's where with me getting the coaching, putting myself out there and learning about it, and not just God's got it. He's got it. Don't worry about it. No, I'm actually taking the steps, putting in the effort to learn it, basically take my life from a 180 and learn something totally new, and being able to implement that and trust him through the process. And now it's where I'm at. Okay, I'm talking to rookies that are in the rookie program and saying, hey, just trust the process. You're going to work through this. You're going to figure it out. Just keep taking the actions. And that's with somebody that's been through it. So it's like having those mentors that have been through it to tell me, don't worry, you're going to make it through it, and trust in God that you're actually going to make it through it.
And I think what you just said is the biggest part of coaching or paying for a program or getting a mentor or whatever it is. The stick to the process, the accountability, the follow the systems, follow the processes, and talking you off the ledge on those dark nights when you're like, holy cow, what did I get myself into? I told the story before of like, I didn't have that with my first property that I bought, and I probably didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days, just scared to death, like not having anybody to talk to. And it was $150,000 property, like hindsight, like I wish I have it, like, but I got scared and backed out of it. It was just like, I didn't have an agent that I had a rapport with, and it just wasn't a good fit. And I didn't pay for any coaching. I didn't pay for anything like that. And it was, had I spent X amount of dollars, say I was in the rookie program, I don't know what it costs, so we'll make up a number of $5,000. It would have paid for itself 3 years later had I done that. So if you're going to stick with something, I advise coaching of some sort.
And I think the biggest thing that I've gotten from coaching is they minimize your problems, because it's like when you first get started weightlifting and, your body doesn't know the difference between pain, that's trying to avoid damage and pain that's, the threshold to a breakthrough. And so when you first start weightlifting, your hands get callous, or they get blistered. And so you might be like, oh, this is not good. I shouldn't be doing this. Whereas having a trainer there can be like, no, they're supposed to get callous. The blisters get hard, and then that, helps you push through. The same is true in real estate. Like when we come across difficult things and, dealing with your first eviction and dealing with, a contractor walk out on you and all these things, in the moment, it feels like the end of the world. But having someone there that's just like, oh, this first contractor walked out on you. Like, no, just do this, this, and this. Like, it's that easy. Or, even your problems get bigger. And I know Ryan Pineda talks about this, that in order for him to hit the threshold of tolerance to be able to have a 10, 20, $30 million business, he had to be able to lose millions of dollars in his Vegas flips during COVID. If he can weather that storm, then he can afford a $10 million problem. And it's like dealing with your first lawsuit. And, all these problems are manageable when someone has that outside perspective and removing the emotions.
Right.
Yeah. I don't. $10 million lawsuit scares me. I'll be the first to admit it. So I don't know how I would handle that one, but it is part of the process, like you say,
I mean, I remember getting my first letter in the mail saying that someone was taking me to court, and I'm like, man, what am I going to do? It's like $1,100. Yeah, it's not worth my time to even fight. I just here,
I got in a car accident when I was like 15, and they sued us, but other than that, I've never had to go down that route.
So. Yeah. It's I haven't done it yet. I haven't been sued or anything like that yet. I've ran into stuff. We had one house that we were 2 days from closing and found out that the sewer line needed to be replaced because it decided to back up. And it's like, okay, do I do the right thing here and let the seller or let the buyer know and pay for it and get it fixed? Or do I just ignore it and walk out the door and it's yours in a couple of days? So it's like, yeah, I need to make the right decision here because my reputation is on the line. My business is on the line, and I don't want to get sued for it when it comes back. So just making the right decisions helps quite a bit.
So, well, I guess I kind of asked this before, but what's outside of business? What's your goals for 25? Like, I know you said you give quite a bit, and you and your wife I know you host a men's Bible study and stuff like that. What do you have teed up outside of business?
Outside of business, traveling. We're going to try to do a trip to Japan. We've got some friends that live over there that are from there, so we really want to go over there and check that out and try to get out as much as possible. I don't like to sit around at home, so see what we can see that we haven't seen yet and get involved in different church activities and groups that we've got going on there and just living life. So just try to put business aside where business needs to be and personal life on the other side and just go for it. So just separating the two and having fun.
Awesome. So on that one, I just have a quick question. What's your philosophy on work-life balance as far as setting time aside for your wife, for your kids, and making sure the business doesn't crumble in the process?
Going into being a full-time entrepreneur, it was everybody's like, you're going to work like crazy. You're going to have to. And going off of what Ryan talks about, like he doesn't work weekends. He's out of there at 5:00. I'm like, okay, if I put the guidelines on myself right now, then I'm not going to have to worry about it later. So I try my hardest not to work on the weekends, which I don't very often. And then like being done in a certain time during the day is not really set by my schedule. Like my daughter goes to gymnastics till 6:45 at night. So it's like I'm done by 6:45 at night, but I don't start until 10:00. So it's not like If I wanted to start earlier, I could, but I'm done by that time of night because I've got to go pick her up and end the night. So it's having those timelines set, I think helps quite a bit. I've never really ran into any issues with it. Like if I need to get something done, I'm going to put my head down and get it done. This is the amount of time I've got to do it. So I'm going to get it done. And if it doesn't get done, it's going to be there tomorrow. Everything's there tomorrow. So put your head down and get it done the next day. Don't put it off till the next day, but get it done the next day. So that's where my work-life balance, like being in the automotive industry, I didn't have the freedom to leave whenever I wanted. The fiber optic industry, I worked from home, and it was whenever you open your computers, when your day starts, 8 hours later, you're done. So I'd start at 4 a.m. sometimes, so I know I could make it to my kids' activities. And now it's like I don't have to ask to go do something. If there's something I want to do, then I just go do it. So, and I know that I'm going to have to work harder the next day or the day before that to cover that period of time. But
yeah, and I was a mechanic in the Army, and so one thing that was different is, you can come home after stripping a bolt and having to torch it and tell my wife like how awful it was, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, that stinks." Whereas now we're in the industry, it's almost hard for us to shut that work mode off because we're both so involved with everything that we do, and it is what we enjoy doing, but working alongside your wife, do you ever have a time where you need to just shut off the business?
I'd say we try, but when we're going places, it's kind of what we talk about all the time is what's going on in this business, or, hey, let's think about starting something else or buying something else. Like we're always thinking about business. So our daughter, of course, is always around there. So then she's coming up with, hey, let's do this. Let's try this. So we're always talking about business.
And see, I don't see any problem with that. I think that's extremely healthy because it's something that we both enjoy doing, and I get to spend every single day with my best friend doing what I love most. So I think that needs to be more normalized. This whole work-life balance thing is, I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I'd say it helps also, like, okay, if there's something we don't agree on in the business, we're going to hash it out right now instead of going to a job site or whatever and taking time out of what needs to be done to have a conversation that doesn't need to be taken care of right at that time. So being in the car or whatever, yeah, you're going to hash stuff out. But it's not really, you're not working. You're just having a conversation with somebody in the car.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that.
Yeah. I don't work with my wife, so it's a little different for me. So she doesn't like talking work. So there is a clear separation there.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, everyone's dynamic works for themselves, and I think that's in some relationships that's what works. So
yeah, and I'd say, like, being in the automotive industry, it was like going to church and people wanting to know car problems and stuff like that. It's like, no, like I'm not at work. I don't want to talk about that. And then being in real estate, like our pastor's in real estate, we've got other people that are agents and stuff. So it's like, sure, we'll talk about it. It's not like I don't want to, but it's like I don't really want to. But it's like, yeah, I'll talk about it. It's no big deal. It's not work to me. It's something that's bringing me an income right now, and so I'll talk about it.
Oh, that's great. And I love seeing more and more pastors be open about, their investing. My pastor not recently, it was a couple of years ago now, but got on a podcast and talked about how he buys commercial real estate. And I ran into him one day and just told him, like, hey, that was a time where I really needed to hear that you can have both. Cause I was at war about, people kind of shunning you for pursuing this wealth dream. And now the circles that I'm in that are encouraging it and saying that, no, God wants you to compound what he's given you so that you can provide more to the kingdom. So I'm just glad to hear that more pastors are speaking up about it.
Yeah. Our pastor was the one that bought my first flip. So
wow, that's cool.
It's like, keep it around. So guess who gets calls when something needs to be fixed, but
I get that it puts them in a tough position. I mean, they're supposed to be leaders of the church, and if they're off pursuing money, then that could be misperceived as greed. So it's a dangerous line that they walk, but more power to them.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a hard one for me. I think they should be able to pursue what they want, but
Well, it's like people expect them to just be monks and, live just to serve the church. And it's like, but they're real people with real families and, real desires and dreams.
yeah, I guess if that's your standard that you want to judge others by, you should judge yourself by that same standard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my
Take the log out of your own.
take the log out of your own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be my first thing to say to them, but I'm not the most PC sometimes. So
Well, this was great, and I'm really grateful we got to know the man behind the mustache, and your outlook on the world and your faith is just, it's a great thing to share with others, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation.
yeah, I appreciate it, and I just hope this whole podcast comes out, and it's not that's not a waste of one. So
Yeah.
that was,
If it
Well, I'll
doesn't
have to
work
do the
out,
next one person.
if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, I'll just show up over there. So
yeah, we'll I'll fly you out.
yeah, I'll get the ticket.
Sounds good. Send me the bill.
Yeah.
So, well, Clancy, I really appreciate it, and thanks again. So
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad I could help you guys out and do this.
yeah, hopefully we can get many more like this after we work all the kinks out. So
Yeah.
it's actually gone pretty well. So
Yeah.